the things I do enjoy most about coaching. So, what are Brooks' strengths and how can I help feature them?
Can I ask you one more question about, you watch Pete and Snyder, the relationship between coaches and general managers. You've got to develop one now. You come from one where they had a really good relationship, some they don't. How do you think a head coach, especially a first-year head coach, goes about building trust with his general manager?
I think it's not just, like automatically assumed over, one day, well, I'll just, automatically trust this guy. So for me, I knew Thomas was a guy that I connected with right off the bat. Like when you meet somebody, you're like, oh, that's my kind of guy. So we met, and I heard through mutual friends, okay, you guys would probably, connect in a pretty strong way. And then from then, we just tried to spend as much time together as we could and looking at players, watching. So for me, over the last 5 weeks, he's the person that I've spent the most time with. And that was definitely by design. So how many players we could watch together, and if we had a disagreement, let's talk through it. And we did that with he and I together in terms of the scheme that we were going to run, as well as we did that with the whole scouting staff.
Have you had much time to look at the draft prospects yet so far?
I have. So I didn't have any real contact or info with them prior to the combine. Mm-hmm. So at the combine, I was not way behind, but
some speed dating. So
yeah, it's a great term. Because in fact, it was one of the questions I asked a couple of the head coaches at the combine. I said, how can you, look at all these players? Like when I went there was like 300 guys. It was like, how do you evaluate 300 players in this amount of time? So I asked some coaches, and they said, well, we don't necessarily look at all of them, So it was an interesting topic, to find out like who was unique to their team, and so that was advice for me when I went to the combine. As a position coach, it was pretty easy. Okay, I got these 50 or 60 guys, and as a coordinator, it was more challenging. So you looked at more, and then from my first experience this year as a head coach, the interviews were probably the thing that I enjoyed most there. In those 15 minutes where you get to connect with the guys and find out maybe a little bit more about what makes them unique.
So when you look at the players this year coming into the NFL, what are some names that stand out to you sort of that fit that Leo profile for a player that you guys look for?
This year I thought there was pass rushers in this draft, and not just in the top picks as we go all the way down through it. And I think really the thing that you're looking for at that position is speed and length. And so length doesn't necessarily mean that you're 6'6", but you do have long arms and you can separate. And as a pass rusher, you want to have enough length that a guy doesn't engulf you. So I bet there's 8 to 10 guys we've identified. Say, do they have the traits, do they have the stuff, and then it's up to us to help develop them and pull them out of it. In coaching, for us, it's one of the great things that we enjoy the most is to say, can you take a player from where he is now and bring him to a spot that maybe he's not even sure he could go.
Yeah, which actually leads to a question that I want to ask you, because there's a lot of talk about personnel, but almost not about scheme or technique. In watching past film, have you seen anything where you say, you know what, we're going to do that differently? And I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but everyone has their style, and
right. I think once I get to know the players better, we can try to feature them in such a way that it makes the things that they do well come out. So it's going to sound unusual, but instead of what a guy can't do, I'm really looking for what traits he can do. And so I think when you have that kind of openness to say, here's what the guy's strengths are, it allows you to think more freely about what he can do. And so that part is different for a player to say, you may have played this scheme in college, but this is what I think you can do here on our club. And so, okay, like sometimes a guy just thinks, well, I'm just going to go to the NFL and I'm just trying to get there. And it's way more than that, so where you can go to.
Any chance you're thinking about a quarterback of the future?
No, it's really one of the spots that we haven't done, for me, I haven't done a lot, looking at that spot. I know there's some great competitors, here that people are talking about regularly, but, I haven't spent that much time with those guys.
In terms of defensive scheme, one problem in looking at film that I saw was an over-reliance on two-gapping. And I'm wondering what you see when you looked at past film, because you're asking a guy to basically hold off. In some cases, a guy can bench press 500 pounds, for two gaps. And some guys can't do it very well, and they're better speed rushers through a three technique.
Yeah, I think just everybody has uniqueness to the style that they want to play, and there's reasons for wanting to play two gap where you can play two safeties. Where my time in Seattle was before a middle field team where we played more single gap, and so that's the style that I enjoy most, and we're trying to feature that when we can.
And one other question, then I'll yield. What kind of offense can Falcons fans expect versus past years? Exciting, without giving away too much in terms of
Well, I think,
multiple offense, perhaps. Or,
well, I think number one, one of the things, we're going to be an explosive team, and we've got some explosive players, and that's our job to help feature those guys. And then for me, the teams that are always the most challenging are the guys that have balance. And so that explosiveness combined with teams that know how to run it and feature the way the quarterback and all the unique stuff that Matt does, those are the things that you'll see from our team. But the explosiveness and the big plays that we're capable of based on a lot of the guys.
Thank you, Coach.
You got it.